Hi, everybody. This is Marilyn. Do we have any audio here? Yes, we do. Are you talking to me? Yes, yes. Okay, thank you. Hello, everybody. This is Marilyn, and it's time for the noon edition of Welcome to My World. This is the 7th of July. I can't hardly believe that, and it's about noon. So today and tomorrow, as we're going to use this little blurb time to make sure I've got everything hooked up and working correctly. I disappeared here if you didn't get the memo in the chat room because I moved, and I just can't tell you how much fun that was. But anyway, I have everything connected, but it's amazing to me how different things can look to you for a day or two and kind of foreign when the lighting's a little bit different on your monitors and your I haven't completely set my system into its permanent place because I have an electrician coming next week, and I know I'll just end up having to do it all over again. So anyway, as long as you can hear me and you can see my charts, I've kind of had one ear to the news and what's been happening. But if you remember in April, I started talking about this Brexit thing and told you to be really careful because that was going to be a big deal. And sure enough, it was, and it did spill over. These markets, if you're new to this, it really pays to pay attention to the international news because these markets are all so interrelated, and everything spills over into the next. Keep in mind, the world turns, and there's always a market closing and another one opening up as you move west. So be very aware of that. And the next big scheduled thing that we know is coming up. I mean, there's unforeseen things that could happen at any time. But the next big thing that will rock these markets is the U.S. presidential election in the fall. So we've got a lot of time between now and then. And one of the takeaways I hope that you all learned from this Brexit thing is the chattering class. If you hung your hat on that chattering class, you would have believed absolutely that they would never leave. And that turned out to be not quite the case. On the other hand, if you know any Brits and you have talked to them for the last 20 years, they have been extremely concerned about the direction their country is going in because of the very lax immigration policies. And they allowed literally millions of immigrants from the North African countries and the Middle Eastern countries. And the average British citizen was very, very worried, and for a long time, about it. They believed they were literally losing their British UK identity. So I wasn't real surprised by this vote at all. But anytime you get all the pundits telling you, oh yes, this is what it's going to be, I'm just kind of sit back and watch and wait and see what happens. Because if you trade on what they say, you might wish you'd been trading with the apex indicators. So this morning, I want to talk about crude oil a little bit because there was a big move here. Oh yes. I see what I've done here is these little strips, I've made these for my charts because I find them real easy to reference instead of going to a whatever you call that, a thumbnail thing where you've got all of them listed down. But if you right click in the middle of this, you can get this always on top, and that way they don't disappear under something. But as long as you can remember that. I'm going to move this for a second out of the way so we can look at this, because Lori has been talking a lot about what she calls the chop box, and I call it bad guy country. It's basically the same thing. It's where the bad guys are hanging out, and they're willing to take your money for sure. I mean, they will ambush you in there. But this morning, right in this area right here, I'll put a circle around it. Right in this area right in here, this crude oil was doing absolutely nothing useful. But if you watch the 6 tick over here, let's see, this is about 742 to about 9. Let's go back here to 945 and take a look at this, because I find the chop much easier to identify on a 6 tick chart. And it had been fooling around here in this, between these little swings, and not giving you anything until all of a sudden it was just about inventory time, and it put up this MVP arrow right here. But the big thing is it broke out of this choppy stuff. So if you were aware that this was about to happen and you were watching this closely, taking this once it broke the this is a 50 EMA here, and what do you know about I mean, this is a little early, but the API had reported that the drawdown was going to be a little bit much. Anyway, when it got down here and it cleared settlement, this is the time to really think about what you're doing. And it keeps going down. Brent is falling. Brent's trading 47.09 right now. So, and I just watched that on a 30-minute. But this is a real waterfall here. And every time it gets to one of these bigger, what I call the big streets here, this green ice marker, and then the mid ice marker, and then we're down. It'll bounce around a little bit. So this is just there, and there is nothing wrong with getting in and out of this 2 or 3 times off of these E's. Just take the E down to the next big, down to the next big street, get off, wait for another E, get back on. And as these E's build, the first one is likely to be the longest one. This was the first one of the reversal. This one right here, likely to be the longest. The next one is likely to be shorter than the first one. And then if it goes to a third one, which would push it below the 1.5 deviation, and what are the odds? What are the probabilities of it going below 1.5 down to 2? They dissipate as you get closer to a bigger deviation. In other words, the higher the deviation, the lower the probability it will continue, because it's put in most of its move in there. But I don't know if any of you watched the Canadian dollar today, but the Canadian dollar just mimicked crude oil. And so tomorrow, let me get this back out of the way. I like to watch, this is my favorite chart right here, obviously. But I also like the C's on a 10-tick. And some people find this a little easier to trade. I like it for the indices in particular. And I also like it for bonds. Bonds today were really, this is just so cool. I'll get this over here because I really do like this. I don't know if anybody's watching bonds today, but this morning, if you're up and ready to go at 8 or 8:15 or whatever, you got this is a trend catcher right here. It's the 50 EMA and the 8 EMA crossed right here. So this is a really good trend line. Trend R just stayed red, 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 red. Getting 10 ticks off of this, you just had to be willing to sit through these, or if you missed them, catch a touchback. But when it turned around, the trend R flipped. It's right here at the low of yesterday. It put in a new low today, the low of yesterday. This flipped right here from red to green. So this is a good place to take a trade. All the way back up here to the green ice. Or if you're after so many ticks, 10 ticks or whatever it is, 10 ticks on bonds is a nice trade. So anyway, that bonds gave you both directions today. Bus driver was very good. I like bus drivers when they are a little bit more clear about where they're going. With these market analyzers, one thing I've discovered, you see this is kind of faded. You have to click on this thing and then click back up here and you'll get it bright. Gives me a little more confidence it didn't forget about what it's supposed to be doing. So anyway, NQ, setting up for a long. I'll tell you what, on that, I'll put my chart over here and show you why I would be waiting, but Lori's a expert on this. As far as I'm concerned, this has been fooling around right in here for kind of about in here. It might be if it comes with a lot of volume out of here. I don't like the time of day. It's 12:15. What are all the big boys doing right now in New York? Most of them are hungry. Most of them have gone to lunch. Volume, I don't know where the volume come from, but if it does come above here with volume, then you might have a trade. But at this time of day, I don't even look for them. I don't even think about it. But anyway, Lori can probably tell you a whole lot more about that. But that inside that box is literally what I call bad guy country. I don't want to be in there. Not at all. So anyway, we've got the VIX. The VIX got up to 25, well, almost 26. That was great. And if you noticed what happened those days, what was this? I don't know. I couldn't trade. I couldn't even get everything functioning. It was on the 27th, I guess. When the VIX was up to 25 3/4, the indices just had a real bad hair day and went down and down and down. So now we've got the VIX trading about 15, and that's on the high side, but not anything to, to worry about. And it looks like the indices they might be done playing for today. We've got this FBI director talking to Congress, and markets do not like anything that's a little iffy. The markets want everybody playing well together, and none of this something might happen and something might happen. And so anyway, tomorrow morning, let's see, tomorrow morning at 8:30, we've got some good news. I would be paying attention tomorrow morning at 8:30 to anything that affects the U.S. dollar and the Canadian dollar, because Canadians and U.S. have unemployment numbers coming out tomorrow at the same time. And keep in mind that the Canadian dollar is the commodity currency that follows crude oil. Yes, NFP, non-farm payroll. So tomorrow's the unemployment change. They got some pretty good unemployment numbers out this morning. I'm not sure what they had to do to get there, but I guess they do. Beyond me, anyway. And let's see. The euro is in a pretty tight range. If you are a Nadex or Forex pair trader, might not be a bad place to be looking for one of your insects or an iron condor. I like iron condors because they're easy for me to understand. Some of the rest of that stuff gets a little... Anyway, at some point, the crude oil, the Canadian dollar, and Brent are all just in lockstep. So I don't expect anything too much going into the close today, but yeah, NFP should be below 3%. Yeah, the big albatrosses, the wide spreads. I agree with Jack. The big wide spreads those make a lot of sense to me. So anyway, I think that's about it. If anybody notices anything on my charts or with the audio on this, please let me know, because I have had to